Well, ladies and gentlemen, we certainly do have a lot on our plate right now with update 14.7, and we have even more coming with update 14.8, with the anniversary event kicking off properly so in that update, which will bring more than a few premium ships to your account if you have an account over 8 years old. But that's still an update away. And it will take quite some time to, of course, grind out the 32,000 free doubloons or so that you can in the Grand Voyage to get, a free premium ship that way. However, of course, right now, you can be working on the In the Name of Tomorrow missions and the special operations that will be running over the course of 14.7 to get the Tier 8 Premium American Light Cruiser San Diego completely for free. So I thought that in today's video we would sit down and take a look at the San Diego and go over her quirks and features and discuss whether or not she is worth the grind in the first place. Because if you haven't played the operations, it's at first I was having a pretty easy time with it, but then I don't know what happened to my teammates. It seems that some of them don't understand how to play the objective all of a sudden, and now I'm getting like 1, maybe 2 stars a go. So yeah, it's looking like it's going to be not really a hard ship to get, but you're definitely going to put in the matches to get it. Here at the front though, if you do already have the San Diego, I would highly recommend you grind through the In the Name of Tomorrow missions, because if you have the ship and you complete the mission chain, you will get 11,000 doubloons for free. Well, for completing the mission, so that's pretty good right there. But the ship herself, if you do not have the San Diego, what is an San Diego? Well, she's a Tier 8 American Light Cruiser. She's an Atlanta-class cruiser, which is basically a really large destroyer. The Atlanta-class cruisers are pretty interesting because the Navy basically went, what if we added another 5-inch turret, and then another 5-inch turret, and then another 5-inch turret. I believe the only thing stopping them from adding more is the fact that they couldn't add any more turrets or rangefinders to the ships because, well, they'd become way too top-heavy and would tip over at that point. But they're a goofy-looking class of light cruiser. I love it. So, we have a couple of these in game already. We have the Atlanta and we have the Flint. The San Diego is the third of these ships. And the Atlanta and Flint are pretty well regarded. The Flint's a little more desirable than the Atlanta because you do get the smoke screen with the Flint, but you lose some range. The Atlanta, probably the more desirable of the two in my mind, at least, because it's got the longer range and such, and I do really like the Atlanta. But the San Diego is the first one of these ships that has been up-tiered to Tier 8. So because of that, the armor on the San Diego is quite a bit better than the Atlanta or the Flint. Now, it's not like suddenly a battleship by any stretch of the imagination, but she is a little bit tankier. The Atlanta and the Flint are two ships that, if you look at them the wrong way, they will tend to just explode. The San Diego, you got a little bit more there, but not a whole lot more there, right? And that's in the form of having 19mm plating instead of 13mm plating. So you're like slightly more well protected against other, light cruisers and some heavy cruisers if you, obviously if you can angle well enough, right? Again, not a battleship by any stretch of the imagination, but you can play it a little more loosey-goosey than you can with the Atlanta or the Flint. Now, on top of having slightly better armor, you do also get a heal, which is a massive upside on any cruiser at Tier 8, right? Let alone a light cruiser at Tier 8. So you do get that heal, and that with the slightly better armor, again, you can be a little bit more daring with it, a little bit more cheeky, and it's a little bit more comfortable to play than the Atlanta or the Flint, where if you goof up, you're probably going to lose half of your HP, if not way more than that, and then there is nothing you can do to get that back. With the San Diego, if you do goof up, you are probably going to lose a decent chunk of your HP, but you do have the heal to fall back on, and that is what makes the ship a hell of a lot more enjoyable to play, in my opinion, than those other two, even though it is, up tier to Tier 8, so you do get into Tier 10 games. So that right there is a pretty strong starting point for me with the San Diego, but it gets better when you get to her main battery guns. She does have, as you can tell, quite a number of these main battery guns. She has a bunch of the American 127mm guns. She has 2 guns per turret and 8 turrets for a total of 16 of these 127mm guns. But they do get sap. Beautiful, beautiful sap. They can pin 36 millimeters of armor. So that means when you, even if you're not top tier, if you're bottom tier, you can pin the bows and sterns of pretty much whatever it is that you're going to come across, of course, unless they have like an iceberg bow or anything, but you're pinning that 32mm threshold, which means you're getting good, consistent damage, and it is sap damage. With the build that I currently have on the San Diego right now, which I am running the heavy sap and HE shells, the 5-inch shells of the San Diego are doing 1980 damage with sap. And with that, I usually find that when it comes to dealing damage with the sap shells, you're doing at least around 5k if you land most of the shells on the target. Obviously more if you drain all of them on target. If you have the broadside, of course. Bowing, that's a different story. But it's good, consistent damage, and you couple that with a 5.5 second reload time. Now, I might be thinking, that sounds a little long, Sealord, for a light cruiser, even a tier 8 light cruiser. And yeah, it's on the longer side, but that's where the San Diego's party trick comes into play. You see, on top of having 16 5-inch sap firing guns, you get reload booster on the San Diego with a 33% buff to the reload time of your main battery shells, which will give you about a 3-second reload for 15 seconds. So you can get 5 really quick salvos out on the enemy players like you're a tier 8 Austin. And that is just downright terrifying to really any high tier destroyer, because it's sap, it's going to do a ton of damage to your DD, and there's a crap ton of it coming back to back to back to back when the San Diego has a reload booster going. And that's usually how I play the San Diego. She does have a 14.8 kilometer range with the build that I have on her, which is pretty good. It's the base range. I don't have the range mod or anything because you can't put it on the San Diego, and you don't have the old range skills like you used to have on cruisers before the commander rework. But I will typically not try to fire at that maximum range because you're not really going to be hitting too much at that range besides like maybe a battleship sailing in a perfectly straight line. So I tend to, well, really play it like a really big destroyer, really big American destroyer, I should say. I go to the caps, find an island to snuggle up next to. I'll back in, to expose my guns. Well, back out from around the island, I should say, to expose my guns, and just absolutely bully the destroyers that are going in the cap. Because, you find someone and, they get radar, they get spotted, and you pop that reload booster, they're probably going to lose most of their HP, if not all of their HP, to your burst. And that is just amazing, the ability to bully destroyers like that. Because now you've either murdered them or you've definitely scared them out of the cap, so your destroyers can go in, take the cap, and, well, win the match. Because capping is what wins games, boys and girls. And murdering destroyers is what makes sure your team can cap. And keeping your DDs alive by bullying the ever-living crap out of the enemy team's DDs is what makes that doubly sure to happen. Now, it's not just destroyers that the sap on the San Diego is also really good at bullying. It's other light cruisers, other cruisers, really, again, anything, because you're pinning 36mm of armor. So if you come across other cruisers, especially other light cruisers, by all means, burst them too with the sap, and you're going to absolutely ruin their day. Now, when it comes to battleships, you do not have HE with the San Diego. You have sap and AP, which you're pretty much never going to use the AP on the San Diego unless you have like a perfectly broadside light cruiser that is sitting perfectly still and is allowing you to obliterate their citadel. And 9.5 out of 10 times, you are going to be using the sap just because it's good, consistent damage. So, yeah, it does have AP though, no HE, so you can't burn down battleships. That's, downside of the San Diego. But again, with the ability to pin 32 and the fire rate of the San Diego, even like without the reload booster, with slapping most battleships, if you can hit either their bow, their stern, or their superstructure with any consistency, again, you're doing like 3 to 5k a salvo minimum with the San Diego. Obviously unless the superstructure is like hella saturated, it's like you're doing good damage anyway. So yeah, it's not really a huge downside. The big downside is when they they're bow into you and their superstructure is saturated and you're really only hitting like their turrets or like their deck plating, which may be thicker than 36mm when you're dealing with tier 8+ battleships. Yeah, that's the only time it does kind of suck. But I mean, in every other case, it's a great damage farmer. But in a lot of cases, well, shoot, man, friggin' tonight, when I sat down to make this video, matchmaking decided that I wasn't getting a even game one way or another. Well, this game that you're watching in the background, it went a little bit longer than the other blowout matches. It was still fairly one-sided through and through, but I think, you know, the San Diego got to shine enough here to where you get the idea of how good the ship is. But it's not uncommon if you're playing the San Diego and you're basically playing like an oversized destroyer and going near the caps and murdering other destroyers and other light cruisers, you're not going to have a massive damage number at the end of the game. I mean, you definitely can, obviously, if you're like on the off flank and the enemy team's having to push into you and you're just, you know, letting your guns rip the entire time. Yeah, you can get a nice fat number at the end of the game. But with the way matches have been going for me, and when I've been reading the comment section for most of you guys, what you're seeing in the background is a little bit more typical. You know, blowout, one-sided match, not really much time to do anything. But as you can see, the ships can still perform. You can still, you know, go to the cap, bully things, take the cap, and still come top of the team. All right? You know, the thing about this game is that the big damage number isn't really all that important. Playing the objective, supporting your destroyers, and keeping your destroyers alive it's so much more important. Those things are so much more important than just the big damage number you get at the end of the game. And the San Diego, in my opinion, is one of the best cruisers that fits into that category. I mean, you get SAP with a reload booster, with, you know, destroyer-sized guns, with good ballistics over the distance that you'll be fighting caps for. You also get Hydro with the San Diego, and you get DFAA in 2 separate slots. So this ship has a crazy amount of utility for a Tier 8 cruiser, especially, you know, one that, you know, you tend to go to the caps and help out your destroyers with. And she has torpedoes too, 4.5 kilometer torps though, so they're not like overly great. They're definitely like, oh crap, someone just walked up on me torps, but she's got them. So, you know, she's a fantastic destroyer supporting cruiser, and one that you still can get those big damage games with if Matchmaker just doesn't hate you like it hated me tonight. Like, literally the game after this was a double CV, double sub game, and both the CVs and one of the subs decided that they were going to pick on me the entire game. So you can imagine how well that game went. But anyway, so yes, it's a fantastic ship. It's a ship that, honestly, if you could buy it outright, I would recommend you buy it outright. And I have in the past because, well, it's good. But now you can get her for free by just going through the operations. I mean, this is a no-brainer pickup for me. She's a great Tier 8 premium ship. She's excellent for, like, Tier 8 ranked, because it's great at murdering destroyers, great at farming down the rest of the enemy team. And, you know, when you're in a small format competitive mode, murdering destroyers and securing the cap, that's the thing that really matters in those modes like that, and she's great for that. She's great for operations, too, of course, if you're looking for a ship that you can, you know, just murder some bots with. Again, look no further. So yeah, you can get it for free, no brainer. Pick the ship up, definitely. It is highly recommended by myself. Oh, almost forgot to talk about her AA. Her AA is definitely better than your average Tier 8 cruiser. Obviously, she has DFAA, and when that thing's going, that makes her AA a lot better. You know, in the match when I was getting bullied by the CVs, I shot down like 45 planes. Over the course of them bullying me. It was a Yorktown and a Pobeda. So, you know, that with popping DFAA as often as I could, 45 planes got shot down. So it's not exactly a no-fly zone, but with DFAA, unless you have a highly skilled CV player, you will be taking most of the CV planes with them if you time the DFAA and your focus fire correctly. Of course, that's all getting reworked here in the near future, but for now, it's got, I'd say, decent AA. Again, AA is so much dependent upon how good or bad the enemy CV player is at not flying into flak, right? So that's pretty highly dependent of any ship. But yeah, it's got better than average AA. I will say that about the ship. But yeah, no brainer. Pick it up. It's a free ship, worth playing through the operations for. And again, if you got the ship already, definitely play through the operations to get the 11,000 doubloons for this ship. So guys, those are my 2 cents on the San Diego. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Hope you guys have a wonderful Wednesday and a wonderful rest of your week. If you did like what you saw here, make sure you drop a like, leave a comment, subscribe to the channel, and all of that jazz. I hope to catch you guys in the next one.